Hanging in.
Hanging in. Good to
You
hear.
already
Good to
know.
hear. Yep. Yep. Okay. So
Sending.
yeah. So here we are. It is now November 19th. I was thinking about our last meeting in October. I think it was also around the 19th. Maybe it was the 22nd. And it was light outside. And while a month doesn't seem like that long, there's often a lot that does go on during that stretch. So I think there's a lot to report on tonight. And I'm sure that each of us here on the call tonight have experienced some things over the past month, which makes November very different than where you were last month. So here we are. We are in this together. As we do with all meetings, we'll start with our mission moment tonight in November. And so, in thinking about the way in which we as a small and mighty school differentiate and provide some supports for kids, given their needs, talents, etc., at the high school right now, we're doing some piloting with some initiatives on Wednesdays, in which we've got a partial day of school, and then there's a rotation over the course of the month with different priorities. PD being one priority, remediation and some interventions being another, and teacher work time being another. And so with this rotation, we're able to focus our teachers' talents and energies on specific kids with specific needs, maybe toward graduation, maybe toward exams, maybe toward core skills. And so that's been happening on Wednesdays, and it's a pilot. So we're getting better at it each time we do it, but there's been some promise. One of the ways in which we're offering that more specialized support with more ratio of adult to kids is by also creating some really worthy experiences for kids in terms of like field trips, field research, et cetera, where I think we've been really thoughtful this year in what kids are experiencing here in New York City, which has a lot to offer. Over the past month, I would argue we've probably had more enrichment trips in smallish groups than we've had perhaps all of last year, and some really cool destinations that I think kids have appreciated, where our staff has stepped up and said, "Hey, look, I know someone here. I'd love to bring my class or a group of kids to this experience. I think it'd be really helpful to them in providing exposure to what might be possible for them, both within school and then beyond." So over the past month, just to give you a sense, we had a group of students go to the National Jazz Museum of Harlem, which is a really, really cool destination. We had kids through Mr. O'Connell, who's our computer science teacher, visit Microsoft's New York office and speak with employees there and talk about career aspirations. He used to work there before joining our team. In addition to that, we had through our performing arts teacher, Miss Fontenette, students visit the Streb Performing Arts group in Brooklyn. And so kids got to see some of these talented artists in um, at work. And then that was during the school day on Wednesday. And then a number of students scored free tickets to their Saturday session this past week, and a number went and got to see them again. So some cool things happening there. Miss Jakova brought a group of students to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden this past month to do some sketching of the natural world. See that in the center photo. And then we had some students visit the Mercer Labs, the Museum of Art and Technology. It looks really cool on the far right. And then today we had students go to BAM for a special exhibition and to MoMA. So a lot happening over the course of the month, and kids getting all of the experiences one wants to have here in New York City. And I think, that's capital. That's capital for them in talking about just their city where they grew up, what their experiences are. And so I think really valuable, in addition to our kids who are getting some extra help, getting some more intensive help as a result. So some win-wins here. That's the mission moment for November. A shout out to our high school team for thinking creatively about how to bring everything to all kids as best we can. So agenda-wise tonight looks similar to what we've done in the past. We had four really solid committee meetings this past week, and so tonight's really about reporting out some of the key items of discussion during those meetings, as well as providing more of a general update on school progress toward goals using our data dashboard. And that's where we'll begin. So with that, Shara and I, on the right, we'll talk about some of the successes and current challenges that have come about over the past month. Some of these things have been going on and been working toward over the past few months. But I think one, we had our interim assessment, one results in. Melissa's going to share those out today. We spoke with Ram and Misha and Juliana last week about that. We're going to move into, or in addition to that, I would just say that like from a priority one perspective, where priority one is about teaching and learning and how we cultivate that through powerful coaching. There's stronger coaching going on across site than we've had in the past year. So I'm seeing good progress, some upticks, particularly at the high school over the past month. So excited for them. From a culture perspective, the data I'm going to share, I think reflects meaningful progress over last year as well. And then priority three initiatives, which really center on student and family engagement, continue to advance and are on schedule at this point in time, 3 months into the school year. From a development perspective, I'd also say that we're showing positive engagement and momentum at this point in the year in comparison to last year. So some good increases across the board in these general areas, again, 3 months in. In terms of challenges experienced over the past 2 months or over the past month. We've talked about under enrollment this year, and that continues to sort of impact budget. I think we've made some gains in working through some of these challenges over the past month. We'll be sharing that out during the AFC portion of the meeting tonight. And then, as you all saw in my email, there was a rainstorm in late October that caused some significant damage to the gym. And so that required significant time, attention, some pivoting. It was disruptive. And at the same time, I think the team was swift and collaborative in working through it. And I think as of now, things are back up and running with regard to school and how we're using different spaces in the building. So that's a big, broad snapshot of things. Let's move into the dashboard and where things stand now. I had mentioned that things happen fast over the course of a month. And so what you're looking at now is a breakdown of the biggest sort of key indicators of school as of October. This is what I brought to you last month. And we categorized different key indicators across the following areas: currently meeting, partially or on watch, currently not meeting, and then pending items. And pending items were things where a month and a half in, we just didn't have full data on. So you see those on the right. And now that we're now 3 months in, we've got full data on everything. So in kind of revisiting this, this is what things look like as of tonight with regard to data. So pending items gone. We've got data on all the key things we want to look at from a governance perspective. I'm pleased to report that many of those pending items have transferred to currently meeting. We'll go into specifics on a few of them tonight. What you see in bold in the table in front of you are the items that either move from pending to some other area, in this case, mostly currently meeting or partially. Or if they're bolded and in color, it just shows where there's been movement from the last month to this month. And so movement this month would be in the positive direction. Our indicators for high school and out-of-school suspension, which are on par with our goals this year at the end of quarter 1, and then staffing vacancies, where we had 2 staffing vacancies last month and have hired 2 promising folks for those roles, and those are in science and in PE health. So that gives you a sense of things. I think we had 4 folks last month at our board meeting, but Ram wasn't official, and so we didn't technically have quorum. Good meeting coming out of committee meetings, but movement to on watch there. And beyond that, let's dig in. Let's dig into this. Now we're going to look at some real data right here in our dashboard. You have access to this too if you want to look at it on your own screen to scroll around, please do. And so this gives you a sense of things. Really, I'm paying attention to these 3 columns and where we are across each of these indicators mentioned. There are 7 I want to point out here that I think deserve maybe some context, and so I'll do that now. First, with attendance rates right now. No, I'm sorry, student enrollment at the top. I'm on the wrong chart here. Where I want to be is right under here, November governance. Sorry about that. So color coding is fairly obvious. And so with student enrollment, we are at 440 right now. We're down based or in comparison to where we were last month. We have had a few students transfer or move on to other places. I'll talk about that momentarily in a moment with attrition, but obviously the goal has been to backfill in a positive manner, and we haven't experienced that or haven't seen that through. And so that is an area that continues to sort of be a challenge for us. I'll talk about some next steps in a moment. In addition to that data point, I want to move on to interim assessments. General variation, I think overall some promise. As I mentioned a moment ago, Melissa will dig into that when we report out on SLC items tonight. Beyond that, student demographic data. This is interesting, so I want to look at that. We look at it once a year in this setting and look at essentially how our student population compares to our district and location, which for us is CSD 13, even though our high school is in Williamsburg, a different district. It's based on our middle school district. So the data looks like this. I'm going to open up another screen for you, and you can do the same here. Give me one moment.
Gotta love two-factor authentication. Keeping our data safe.
So I'm going to move over here just to kind of keep this more simple. There's a lot of comparisons we could draw, but I think I'm most interested in saying Unity's population right now in October 2025 versus the data we have. Chris, did you update this? You
Since
may have. And if you did, I appreciate you.
in the
No,
last
you
few
didn't. You
hours?
didn't. I'm
No,
still saying. No,
no.
you haven't. Which is fine. So we're going to draw two comparisons here. Where we are now among our subpopulations, the percentage of students who classify under classifications used by SED this year versus where we were last year versus CSD 13 for the most recent year we have data at this point in time, which is October 2023. And so the populations of greatest interest that SED typically looks at when looking at schools would be students with disabilities, SWD, students who are coming from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, ED, and students who are classified as ENLs, learning English fairly recently. And so what you'll see is 27% of our students this year, 612, have IEPs. That compares with 22% this year and 14% in our district and location. So big delta here of 13 points when looking at the most recent data we have for CSD 13 and then where we are now. And then you'll note a significant uptake from last year to this year. And so I think that's noteworthy. With regard to kids coming from economically disadvantaged households, we're at just shy of 80%, very close to where we were last year, and then the district is closer to 60%. So big delta there as well. And then for students who classify as ENL, 10% of our students this year, this 1% is off. It was more like 5% last year. So got to make a correction there. And you'll see the district and location is 4%. So a fairly significant increase this year in comparison to our district and location 2 years ago and where we are now. Are there questions there or findings there? Anything you'd note? Key finding, key observation here is does our student demographic reflect CSD 13? And I think really what our authorizers are looking at there is, are we serving a population of need and doing the good work for those who benefit from it most? The answer is yes here. In fact, we serve an overrepresented population of students for these different demographic groups than our district of location. So I think that's generally seen positively by our authorizer when thinking about the work we do and who we're serving. I will pause there. Some of this other data I think is relevant, but those are the key areas I wanted to bring to the board's attention tonight. As we look at this once a year roughly and get a sense of where we are versus the average school in our district. With that, I'll bring us back to our data dashboard, which should be here, maybe. Oh, this is here. That's why. So other points beyond demographics worth looking at for this group as we think about where we are in month 3. So I just would say with student attrition right now, which is column 5, Right now, 1% of our students from October to November of the past month have moved on from our school at the middle school, 2% at the high school, a total of eight. A majority of those folks are moving because of moving themselves. And so move to another area where school is just not within distance. And then we've had a couple of kids where their families have realized that they're commuting too far, don't feel comfy with that. And so they've made a switch to a school that's closer to where they reside. As we recruit broadly within Brooklyn, I think that I think is good for our school and good for our student body. At the same time, there are consequences of that if families have second thoughts about the commute. And so that's happened in a couple of cases early this year. Beyond that, data point five, staffing vacancies I've talked about already. We are now meeting in both areas and fully staffed up with some exciting folks now joining our team this past month. And then item seven, the last item is just sped compliance and where we are as of this month. So we tend to look at sped compliance in a broad form within governance, the percentage of IEPs that are up to date, the percentage of IEPs that are fully met, the percentage of IEPs that are partially met, and then not met at all. And so we're looking at high numbers for up to date, obviously, high numbers for fully met. In the event that we don't offer a service, there may be some variation there, but trying to get that as high as we can given the services we do offer. And I think that's generally what we see here. We're meeting in both sites, both campuses. 96 and 100% of our students have IEPs that are fully up to date. For those that are not, there have been meetings scheduled, so we're on point there. And then with regard to percentage of students where their full IP is met, we're in good form there. I will say there are some services that aren't being offered by the CSE at this point with regard to sort of special services, occupational therapy, et cetera. Vouchers are out for families there, so we've done everything we can do to support them. And so that's where things stand with regard to sped compliance. Any questions here? All right, so those are some notable data points for school as of November. I want to move on to a few other points where the idea is to check back up on a couple of areas where we were meeting or on watch and want to get to meet. And for areas where we're not meeting, just sort of check back in on the things we're doing and the progress we've made. So what you see on your screen right now are the items as of November where we are partially meeting or on watch. Student attendance at the middle school, we're one tick below where we want to be at 91%. For us, action is stay the course, monitor data regularly and implement our existing systems. For our high school suspension rate, we did the things we wanted to do last month in updating our protocols. And there was some good interventions proactively taken at the high school early in October. And I think it's really had a nice effect on student culture and the way in which we're leaning on each other to get the most out of school day together. So I think as a result, we're back in quarter two in good form there. With staffing vacancies, I've talked about that. So progress made based on the work that team did in hustling to identify some really great folks and have them in and bring them on. And with regard to family participation, conferences are happening this week on Monday and Tuesday. So we're looking for a high turnout there. Both teams at both sites have been actively communicating with families to schedule conferences. At the high school, recall they are student-led. So got to walk through advisories today and see students prepping for that with their notes and what they would then share out with families and their advisor on, again, Monday night or Tuesday afternoon. So they're getting ready for that. Certification, we are at work here, minor movements since the last month. So on top of these things, where again, the goal is to be in the green with each of these items. For the two items where we're currently not meeting, student enrollment, and that's for 25-26. We're talking about backfilling right now. We've been doing the things that we said we'd do last month. So we've done some launching of social media, tried to advertise with a focus on backfill. There are a few other steps we want to take. Our social media team was actually on site today, got to meet with them. They got to tour the school. One of them lives in Houston, so made the trip up specifically to meet with us. So that was good. Got some ideas on perhaps how we even more differentiate ourselves from other places. They were impressed with the performing arts initiative we had today, which was just kids performing their dance routines they've been studying over the past couple of months in dance classes and doing those during assembly. So we may be, if you're on social media quite a bit, you may see some postings on that soon. In addition to that, with enrollment right now, we have made some calls to our eighth graders from last year just to check in and make sure they're feeling well supported in good hands. There's been a little movement there and some discussions which are ongoing. I think the expansion, which we'll start doing tomorrow afternoon, is to begin making check-in calls with some of the eighth graders last year who applied and were interested in school but may have made a decision to go to another school instead, and just seeing if they're also feeling well cared for. So a few other things we're doing right now on the backfill front. Any questions there? All right, beyond enrollment right now, the other area that we're looking to make ground in where we're not meeting our goal is with high school attendance. The leadership team did conduct an audit of attendance intervention and what's happening at the high school now with regard to absenteeism, particularly at the tier one level. In looking at that, one of the things that we have been doing, which I think is not as effective, is if a student's absent, there's an automated call that goes to families and it's just impersonal. So as a small school where we want to know our families, one of the moves we're going to make this month is to have calls made through a live human being who's focused on attendance interventions, checking in with kids and with families, just to have real conversations about how to increase attendance on the daily. So that's one swift change we're making. In addition to that, our principal at the high school wants to see punctuality prioritized among kids. And so we do have a good number of kids who are not there for first period at the start of the day. That's a healthy habit, and so we want to teach them that. And so she, along with the team, have devised the pilot with a focus of 42 students. These are students with good attendance overall, but are not making it to school consistently on time. And so there are a few ways in which that's happening through more intensive communication, some incentives, et cetera. We'll collect the data, got a good database for it, and so we'll see where that goes. In addition to the calls that are live to families starting in December, the other actions we're going to take to get attendance increasing and in the right direction is implementing kind of a check-in, check-out system over the course of the week. And we're thinking about 30 students who are involved in that. Got a staff member identified for that. And essentially, we'd send a letter out to homes saying, hey, call home. This is what's going on. Want to see attendance increase for your child. Want your help at home through these things. And no, this is what we're doing here at school. The idea would then be a monthly check-in. This is by the quarter. So the students have been identified based on their first quarter attendance. And so the idea is for us to then see improvements in quarter two. If that happens, we'll celebrate at the end. Those kids would graduate from this intervention and we'd focus on other kids. And so that's what's happening right now around high school attendance to get that up. Questions there, ideas there? All right, so stepping back, that's where we are on some of these key indicators of school health, school progress as of November. We're now going to move into the committee report outs. Again, there were 4 strong meetings last week and just before with the development committee. We're going to start with the SLC report out. Here was the agenda from that meeting. Melissa's now going to share out our I results for middle school and high school in broad form. We went into them quite granularly during the call on Thursday. So Melissa's going to share out that. She's also going to share out a forecast for graduation and where we are now with the class 2026. And then I'll finish off with a return to student and family handbooks and our next moves there and approving that. So with that, Melissa, I hand the mic to you.
Hi all. So starting with our middle school IA1, we also have fall star results next to that if folks want to dig into the data in a little bit more of a granular form. But headlines, we're excited to say that ELA is overperforming last year's IA in all grade levels with 10% or more increases. That is great because it was an overall high year for ELA for us last year. So to see that trend continuing is really good news. I'm going to go off camera because I'm worried that I'm lagging. IA1 results are also strong in our STEM Regents courses. That's Algebra 1, which we've offered for many years, but we've reintroduced or introduced Earth and Space Science in its revised form this year. And that shows that over 90% of students are on track in those selective Regents courses. We did see a slight underperformance year over year in math compared to last year in sixth and eighth grade, though we're up in seventh grade. So overall, as a school, probably just a notch down under 5 percentage points. But we are watching math closely. The exams are substantially similar year over year. Some of them have been truncated. In an ELA, we went from a hybrid curricular and end of year exam test to using the end of year exams persuasively here. So we hope that they are slightly more predictive. Any questions on how the middle school's doing? Great. So let's go with the high school as well. So headlines at the high school, we've done a huge investment in coaching this year, and we saw significant improvement in 3 out of our 4 priority Regents courses that we keep the closest track of. We're up 53% in ELA, 28% 28 percentage points in bio, and 65 percentage points in global 2. Now, I should say that these are very small exams. I don't think that these are quite predictive of end of year performance, but they are directionally where we're headed. So we're excited to see that growth here in these exams. And Algebra 1 did have a 3 percentage point dip. However, last year it was not predictive. It was students performed well below what IA1 suggested. So we are comfortable with that drop this year and comfortable with the degree of analysis that's happening in that course alongside our returning teacher, our new co-teacher, and our new department chair. I do think that increased coaching and increased conversations around both like predicting and focusing on the core skills that were most important and were tested in this cycle had a lot to do with how students performed. Now, this was given in class. It was a slice of what students have learned so far, taken from end of year exams, but focusing in on the most important skills. So I think that our mid-year exams are going to be the ones that are a little bit more predictive. If directionally we're still moving this much ahead of where we were last year, we know we'll be in much better form than we were a year ago. Our next data point that I'll be able to bring to you next month is related to our middle school. We are giving STAR assessments in in about 2 weeks of class from now. So if we see growth there in both math and ELA, we know that that will be a strong indicator of performance this year.
And that's iReady, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said STAR, didn't I? I meant
Yeah.
iReady. Sorry, I traveled back in time. So many
One,
assessments, so many years.
one question, Melissa, thank you for that. With regard to middle school, you talked about some of the reasons you think the results for the 3 or 4 exams increased for IA1 this year versus last year. What do you suspect is driving the continued positive direction in ELA? And is there anything in math that you'd name as maybe hindering that same kind of growth?
Yeah, I'd say so. In ELA, we have the majority of teachers are returning. The only teacher who is new is actually one of our deans who stepped into the role to take over the teaching portion of our department chair's position. So she's, has strong knowledge of the kids and a supportive team. Our director of support services is supporting her in that class too. So we have a number of returners, and it's our second year with our curriculum. I think that these are really high quality instructional resources, and a team that is bought into using them and in looking at data with regularity, looking at kid work with regularity, and knows their exams back and forth. So I think that continuity has been really supportive of the team. last year. Folks, usually when you introduce a new curriculum, you see a 1 year little dip, but this one was a good match for our team, and they really utilized the grade level resources that they were given last year, and that supported kids in a big way. So the wash, rinse, repeat here has, and then with some improvement, has been supportive of the team. Our math team, we have, especially in those grade areas, sixth and eighth grade, we have new teams. We have one returning eighth grade teacher, or sixth grade teacher rather. She's in her second year of teaching, and then we have someone newer on the staff. We also had our longtime assistant principal, and before that, math chair was, an absolute whiz and was driving that team. So we have a bit of a different structure where we had two chairs last year. We now have one math chair, and the other math chair has taken over as an assistant principal. So I think that team is learning some of the instructional routines for the first time. Um, and foundationally, our sixth graders are a little bit behind in math where our eighth graders were last year. So that contributes as well.
Got it. Thank you for that. Shall we go to a start, stop, continue, and then move on? Here
Yes.
we go. All right. And
Um,
if
so
Ram or Juliana want to add to any context here coming out of the call last week, please, guys, feel free to chime in. Go ahead, Melissa.
um, Well, I talked about how our curriculum is in good form. We know we've seen from our iReady results and our state test style questions agree. There's some need for foundational supports at our middle school. So we're starting with some interventions that are tailored to meet those this quarter. I think prioritizing math 6-12, we see that that's an area of need for our students. My area of expertise is ELA, and because we were lagging there for some years, my support has been there. I foresee shifting that and working more closely with our chairs there. We fortunately have kind of a rock star at the high school who can be supportive of that as well. Increasing support of middle school math teachers, and by that I mean in their pedagogy and in their delivery. We have both our AP and our principal, who are former math teachers, flexing into those rooms a little bit more, including direct support. And we're starting our shorter data cycles upon returning from December, where we're looking at data with more frequency at a 2 week pace rather than this quarter pace. The stop is pretty similar. We're going to stop relying on this quarter cycle now that we can move into a shorter cycle with fidelity. Students have the foundational information of their courses, and we can start looking at how they're hitting those power standards week over week. We are going to continue to use those high quality instructional resources. We've seen that pay off in ELA and math and in our biology course at the high school as well. We're focusing on coaching. I said when I wrote this at high school in particular, I do think it's across both sites, though we are reinstalling the infrastructure of coaching that had atrophied at the high school a little bit over the past couple of years, and we're implementing our regular data cycles as well as some pre-teaching of uh, information for kiddos as well. Am I frozen?
No, you're not. You're loud and clear. Any comments
Oh,
or any
great.
questions from the
You
group?
are.
Cool. So that's where things are now. What we're going to do, so we've now reported out on IAs, which is a big data point within the dashboard we have for governance. We're now going to move on to a graduation forecast, which I don't believe we got into fully during Thursday's call. We spent more time on the IA stuff. But I think what I'll say before Melissa dives in is just there's more work to do this year for us as a team in having more of our kids be set up cleanly for graduation as of June of this year. And that is partly a result of not setting them up last year as well and in the year prior. So I think with that, Melissa, you want to share out some of the details of where we are now, what we're trying to do over the course of the next several months and setting kids up for graduation and then college.
Yeah. Josh has, framed it very well. While we have plans and we're doing some very detailed planning for every child, we do not have the number of children, as you can see here, who are on track right now, as compared to years in the past. Though we are moving forward. I Since our call on Thursday, I've altered these numbers a little bit to move them up, and then at 4 o'clock today, I've got the news that a few other students had hit their fifth exam. But at a high level right now, I've got, if um, senior year grades were closed now and if they're all in good form, I've got 54% of students I could graduate today. I have another 29% of students who are on watch. They need, for the most part, this means that students need one Regents exam or that they are dragging one course that they will have to take after finishing out the year. They'll have to take it in June. I've broken down this number in a way I haven't for this team before. I have 7 plus 11. This is not like a 6, 7 or a cute number. What I mean here is that there are 7 students who have to meet a graduation need that can be met simply. For example, students have scores in a range that they can appeal on a Regents exam, but must prepare and take the Regents a second time. If they do that, they can appeal and have reason to successfully appeal a Regents that would allow them to graduate. So we have 7 students in that bucket who will remain in this bucket until January, and then I will be able to move them solidly into that on track bucket. I have another 11 students who need to pass one Regents exam. They're receiving some intensified tutoring. They Josh spoke earlier about how students went on some trips. While they were off on trips, these students were back with other with our teachers, with our experts, at an incredibly beneficial ratio, no more than 4 or 5 students per teacher. There will be other supports for these kiddos as well, including Tuesday tutoring. Some of them are sitting in on classes during the school, and a very intensive push in January when it's closer to the exam, for these kiddos. There's, I think, 3 kiddos who need a math exam, 2 who need a science, and the rest are history exams. So there's one ELA in there too. Um, then I have an additional 4 students who are currently off track. These are students who do not have disabilities and who need more than one Regents exam. They are part of that plan, but there's more than one area they'll need to demonstrate their knowledge in for Regents. I also have a much larger number. Last year, I think I was working with um, 2 children in this cannot graduate in 4 years bucket. Right now, I have 7 students. The 3 of the students are current juniors. 2 of them came to us with graduation years or entry cohort years below their cohort. So they came to us as ninth graders with 0 credit. So they were ninth graders again, as one example. And then I have an additional 4 students who are truant. So they are counting currently towards against our graduation numbers. They are the 7 reflected here. So that is the forecast there. The strategy is incredibly individualized plans for students and some time intensive tutoring. I know that our team is much stronger this year than it was last year. So I'm excited about that, both with instructional coaches who are able to devote time to thinking about the sort of curriculum to get students back on board, as well as a number of strong teachers. So that is a strategy that has worked for us in the past. We moved the children in the orange and yellow buckets last year with that strategy, and this year I think we have stronger muscle applying that strategy. Josh, anything you would add?
No, I think this is something we'll keep a close eye on. Melissa, you've been driving this over the past month along with a couple other team members. So we're in good hands. And I've found that in the building over the past 2 weeks, I've seen both adults and kids kind of collaborating pretty directly in sync because this is important to all. And so I'm feeling promising and optimistic about the way in which we get after this. have as many kids as possible experiencing graduation in June for those who are on watch or off track right now.
Thanks.
So we're going to make one pivot. Jim, if you are there right now, we've got quorum. And so Juliana's got a conflict in a few minutes. I think it makes sense for us to jump down to some of the approval items and have those discussed. I don't think there will be any kind of deep dive questions here. I think they're fairly straightforward. And then some of them are left
Yeah.
over from last month's meeting. So if that's okay with you, can we jump down to those now and then we'll finish the committee report outs after? Okay, cool. All right. So, pardon me as I move down here. Cool. Here we are. Kristen's there. All right. So I guess we've got minutes both from the October meeting, the 22nd, as well as September 25th. Those were shared out in my email yesterday morning. Folks have had a chance to review those. If there are any questions that have come up, we can talk about them now. If not, I think, Jim, you can bring them up for approval.
Yeah. Are there any questions, comments? We're good? Okay, all in favor? Show of hands. Thank you.
Okay.
Josh, 3-year plan?
Yeah, I think this was also discussed during our meeting last month and then during various committee meetings over the course of the last 2 months. So I think this is more of a formality of just saying, all right, for this plan we have, we're acknowledging the plan and want to do our best to see it through. And so that's really why it's here tonight.
I think Marion had a comment about putting academics up front. Did that happen or is that
I think Mario was referring to the external version of it,
okay?
where like it was there and it's built into the metrics, certainly within the plan. She thought it just might be more prominent, and then she also wanted to take another look at it offline, but didn't have material reservations about what was there. It was more of like this is how we might present it slightly differently. That was my take.
Okay. Okay. I'm assuming you're communicating with her on her issues, so
Yep.
it's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
And there's nothing that
okay.
says we couldn't amend this if we needed to, if there was like a
Yeah,
definite change we want to make. And that's going to be natural, I think, is this is a 3-year plan.
understood. Okay. All in favor? Thank you.
I'm going to move on to the external coverage services. Chris, if you want to take a 30-second kind of take at this, I think that's fine. This was discussed with the AFC on Friday, and I think Sal and Jim and Marion were all eye to eye on this. But Chris, why don't you provide a quick summary?
Sure. Thanks, Josh. So yes, we did discuss this during AFC last Friday. During the 2024-25 last school year, Unity Prep spent $82,000 on coverages, external coverages, external substitute teacher services. Um, Going into this school year, I did some research and found an agency that was quite a bit cheaper that has a good reputation. They work with KIP. So I'm requesting from the board $60,000 towards efficient staffing solution, given that they provide external substitute teacher services to the school. We're not locked into a contract as far as we have to pay monthly. It's as we need a sub, we call the sub company, they send a sub, we pay for the company. So if they don't provide quality, we can terminate the contract at any time by just not hiring any more subs.
And Chris and Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong here, but just this is a formality, and according to our bylaws with the board, if we ever have a cost that's beyond 20,000, we get 3 bids, and Chris has identified the best vendor, brought it to the AFC, and so we haven't spent 60,000. We may not have to, but we anticipate going over 20, and so this is about having the board's approval to do so. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did a lot of research. I spoke to 5 different companies, and this is the best one. This is the most cost efficient by far. So if they deliver, I'll be very impressed.
Questions for Chris here?
Okay. Seeing no questions, all in favor? Thank
Thank you.
you.
All right. And Kristen, to you, we've got 2 updates that Kristen would like to bring to the full board, which was also discussed with the AFC on Friday. AFC felt comfy with this. And so, Kristen, you want to provide details here?
Yep, so there's two items related to the FPP. One is an actual change in language to the FPP. Currently, we have language that restricts the use of petty cash. We have identified a need around um, tolls for transportation at our middle school. We've tried some creative ways to try and pay these bills, these tolls, but we are stuck with having to pay via cash. So we would like to change the FPP language to reflect a petty cash strictly for tolls and transportation related costs. The petty cash will not exceed $150 and it will be audited by myself when I am on site. So we would like that language changed. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is our changes that we did a couple months ago for the FPP was we noted that the board needed to approve the use of any employee-owned and/or operated organizations or businesses. We have identified one employee business that we would like to use. We've worked with them to identify 4 unique items so far, and we've done independent, meaning I have looked for vendors that offer those same exact products, and they have consistently been the lowest cost. So we're asking for board approval to authorize the use of this employee vendor for the 25-26 school year, pending the requirement that they provide their quote, and we independently, Chris or I, identify vendors that offer the same product and that they maintain their low cost option. And if they are, then they would be allowed to be used for the school year. And if we did do this and we wanted to continue to use them next year, there would be an approval next year. So those are the 2 items.
Thank you, Kristen. Any questions?
Great. Okay, thanks. All in favor? Thank you.
All right, final item is just some updates to our handbook for student families, which took effect. We're done earlier this year, but typically what we do is bring them to the full board for approval as an annual item. And so I brought this to the board last month, and we said we should take maybe another month to review this. We didn't have quorum either, and so we weren't going to vote on it. But essentially, it's this. We updated the handbook in August and early September. The updates are cosmetic with a focus on making things very simple for our families, making things clear. There are no material changes to the contents of the handbook, and they're in line. The handbook itself is in line with what's in our charter and any recent communication we've had with our authorizer over the past 2 years. One example of that is our discipline policy, where we made some updates and had those approved 2 years ago. And so what we've done specifically is we've combined middle school and high school to make it one handbook. In the past, we've had 2 handbooks, and it just gets to be just less efficient and simple and basic for our families, particularly those families that are moving from our middle school to our high school. So we felt like one was an optimal route to go. So that's what we have now. We make our handbook available to our families in our weekly newsletter, on our website, etc. And so tonight's request is to approve what would be this year's student family handbook over what we've had in prior years. Are there questions there?
Okay, seeing no questions or comments, all in favor of approving? All right, thank you.
Cool, and that worked out well. That was the last report out from kind of SLC related items. So I think with that, we're going to move on to the next committee report out tonight, which is with the AFC. Kristen, I'll have you kind of lead the way with the report out what we discussed on Friday. Juliana, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks. Josh, can we go to the next slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
And I
So
guess this would be mainly, I mean, Jim and Sal get to see this. So this is mainly for Ram. So Ram, if you have any specific questions about what's here, here's your time to get a whole bunch of attention.
yep. So we reviewed the October financials. So we are currently meeting all of the NICEAD benchmarks as of October 31st. We are looking at our projections for year end, and we have one benchmark, the same benchmark as last month, that we are still not meeting or projecting to meet, but still making efforts in trying to get there. So our current month end net income was about 484,000 compared to the prior year, same month ending of 930,000. So we are less than we were last year at this point in time. This is mostly driven by our lower enrollment that we've talked about, which impacts our per pupil allocation and our lease assistance subsidy. For our projected year end, we are at a negative 1.9 million. We've talked about over a year now, the right of use entry that impacts that number. So we like to pull that out so we can get like a true look at what does it look like from comparable years with that right of use accounting entry removed. And we are at a negative 170,000. So we are looking to continue to make changes and reevaluate every budget line to see where we can claw back the 170,000. Also in efforts with our revenue side and trying to generate some additional revenue, whether that be through enrollment or other avenues. So the final thing is our bond covenants. With the current projected year-end results, our debt service cover ratio is at risk of not being met. And just a reminder, that debt service ratio is a combination of FONB and Unity together. So both organizations' financial results impact our ability to meet that. So that's where our October financials are. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that, Kristen.
Yep.
With regard to enrollment, here's where things stand right now. I mentioned this earlier. We're at 440, 217 at the middle school, 223 at the high school. There was a drop of 7 over the last month, mainly due to moving and where kids and families live. What I want to do, last month I brought to this team our strategic plan for a thriving and sustainable enrollment and some of the ways in which we're thinking about enrollment, where recruitment is one element of many. And so just some updates here for team. So if you look at the screen now, you'll see there were 7 elements of what I see as a healthy enrollment of the school and what feeds into it, and one being the retention of students and the quality of service we provide to them and their families. The continuation from our middle school to our high school, our 8th graders going to our high school, how we do recruitment, applications coming in, our profile and the partnerships we establish with our community, the way in which we market ourselves and reach out to families, and then the way in which we backfill each year and then onboard students in healthy ways. So with that, with those levers, I think the updates are what is in green. So we've made some good progress over the past few weeks with continuation, with recruitment, with profile, with marketing, and with backfill. Specifically, here's what things look like over the past month. Sorry for the small font, but I'll talk you through it. So with regard to continuation of our 8th graders to our high school, the things we're doing right now is we do have these small group VIP tours with our 8th graders coming to our high school, getting the red carpet, speaking with our principal, our AP, our class president, our student class VP, all the good people in the building. And we started that this past week and we'll continue it over the coming weeks. I like where we are there. We're doing this earlier and more effectively than we did last year, so hopefully it bears fruit. In addition to that, with recruitment and applications and the way in which we are meeting our goals with applications and then matriculation, phone banking begins this week. Chris is kind of leading that charge with a number of middle school staff members making calls in an afternoon starting tomorrow. We also have some correspondence going out to all of our feeder schools and then some taking place this week and next. We're going to be getting some short clips and testimonials from graduates of our feeder schools who are now with us to the leaders of those buildings and create some connection, create some positivity, and then begin talking about the coming year. Beyond that, we are also we launched a Unity Connect referral program with families in a formal way, and that's just the way in which We encourage families to reach out to their networks, their neighborhoods, their neighbors, and tell their story about their experiences at Unity, and let others know about the good things happening in the school. And so that's a little more formal this year. We're making it interesting and providing some acknowledgments and celebration and incentive for families to do so. So I'm excited to sort of see way that unfolds. From a profile standpoint and partnership standpoint, we began having our families who volunteered to flyer on our behalf this past week. And so Kalu Beckford, who manages student recruitment, gave out a whole host of brochures to families coming out of our family ambassador meeting last Thursday. And they're doing the good work of getting them out to their neighbors and friends and family so that those folks have things to hand and know about us. From a marketing and outreach perspective, we are focused on digital advertising happening in line with the phone banking also happening. And so I think some creative paths here with regard to how we're doing things. From a backfill standpoint, I mentioned earlier what we're up to. We're making calls to families who applied last year, maybe didn't enroll, and see just how they're doing. So those are some steps being taken now. If folks have other ideas, we're always all ears for ways in which we get stronger here. And so I'll give folks a moment if they've got an idea or a question here. All right, so that's the update. That's where things stand from an AFC perspective. We're now going to jump to, oh, I've got one more, sorry. 584 drinks. So yeah, this is a different kind of update, right? And so we were very close to finishing things off last month when I spoke, and then this storm wreaked havoc on the building. And so it's funny, I was looking at what we had done over the summer. Lighting, ceiling, acoustics, new curtain that's coming in next week over the break. Hoops coming in next week over the break. There was some painting done. We had some minor plumbing repairs. Unfortunately, those repairs didn't get at the root cause of the issue. And the rain came down hard. I think as a result of all that, we are where we are, where there's been some quick, swift action to get things back up and running. But we talked about a ribbon cutting event to celebrate this. We're going to do that in January, assuming all goes well with the repair. So that's where things stand from a renovation standpoint. We'll talk a bit about generosity in the way in which folks have stepped up over the past few weeks in our time of need. So, would anyone from the FC add anything here? Cool. So with that, next report out is the governance committee, which met on Friday afternoon. A couple of things we talked about. There's nothing to bring to the full board of discussion tonight, but we did celebrate Ram's board membership. We talked about the self-assessment survey, which we administered some time ago. I'm waiting for one responder to get the results in. They may have done that this week. I haven't had a chance to look, in which case we will look at this during the December meeting. And then beyond that, we talked about the 3-year strategic plan and next steps there and how we share it out effectively. Just some notes for this board team. And I'd love if you've got other ideas for how we share it out and make this plan exciting and inspiring for others. What we're doing right now is we brought up for approval tonight. We are going to have it be available to folks visiting our building, throw a QR code on the wall by the main office, an image of the strategic plan, and then invite people to take a look at it and have some fun with it. One idea I have here is also sharing this out during the family ambassadors meeting in December. That's not listed here, but I think it'd be a good move. It's on our website right now. It's on our about page of our website as well as the give page of our website. And those are things we're doing. Obviously, as we make connections with foundations or entities who are interested in what we're thinking about in the coming years, this is a primary document to share and discuss. So that's what we're thinking about in terms of sharing with others. And then beyond that, things we're going to be doing so that this doesn't just get thrown in a pile and it lives somewhere because some good work went into it. we're going to, over the coming month, be devising a progress tracker on this. It's a three-year plan, so there should be some regular check-ins on how things are going. So we're going to devise that, bring it back to the governance committee next month, and that would be something we would then rely on to guide us over the course of the coming year and years. And then beyond that, we talked about the value in conducting, as we look at this plan and get really specific and familiar with it, an assessment of what needs we have. Do we have everything that capacity-wise or talent-wise we need to see this plan through? In the event we don't, maybe there's some ways in which we get creative about getting some help from other entities. So those are the things we discussed as sort of immediate next steps in using this plan fully. And I think with that, that's the report out on all things governance-wise. Questions there? Groovy. And then from a development committee front, I didn't share it explicit where we are goal-wise, but we're in good form right now. I think we've raised about $90,000 as of right now for this year. And so that tracks pretty well with what we're trying to do this year. I'll say that with the outreach I made last week with the gym and an appeal for support, folks have stepped up. I haven't crunched the numbers fully, but in comparison to last year, it wouldn't surprise me if we've got more giving happening per person than we had all of last year. So we've had more folks step up. The outreach has been strong, and people have shown support. So that's great. Want to thank Sal for your support. Happy birthday, by the way. You folks have come through and shared out, and so you should be proud. And we're grateful. And so we'll be continuing with this. I've been in contact with folks offline and online. I imagine there'll be a couple of bigger donations coming in soon as people have kind of said that they want to give, and we'll be in touch. And so I'm feeling optimistic about this. And then stepping back, we took kind of a challenge and weren't bashful about saying, hey, we've got a challenge, help us out. And people have done that. So I think from a development capacity standpoint, I think this is a good kind of learning experience for us and thinking about how we make outreach effective. So that's where things are from a development standpoint. Sal or Ron, would you add anything? Cool. So with that, I'll move us forward. And as I do, team, we are now, approvals have been completed. We move on to where we are going into the next meeting, which is on December 17th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. And as I think about what items we'll likely discuss, you'll see them on the screen. So obviously a data dashboard, where are we with the things that we're focused on first and foremost, and how is everything else going? We'll provide an enrollment update and budget implications during the next meeting. We will devote some time to thinking about our alumni and where they are. I've got a meeting tomorrow with some team members there, so look forward to reporting out status. And then we're going to have some perception data that we'll share out from a few stakeholder groups. So we'll do that. As I mentioned earlier, I'd like to bring, if it makes sense to the governance committee, this 1.0 progress tracker for our strategic plan and get some feedback there. And then we'll talk about 26, 27 recruitment. We're heading into the new year very soon. And then any development updates and where things stand coming out of Giving Tuesday and end of year. So busy, all good things to discuss. Are there any other items that folks would add to the list that are worth discussing as we close out 2025? Cool. So with that, Jim, call for public comment. And I think there are no members of the
Right.
public. So it's a short one.
Yeah, so should we move to executive session here and
Yeah, meeting's adjourned, team. Thank you so much.
turn the video off?